On today's episode, I've got some good news and some bad news. The bad news is the economy of 2025 is not going to save you. Interest rates aren't going to save you. In fact, nobody's coming to save you when it comes to your real estate business. It's up to you. The good news is you have everything that you need if you listen to today's episode in order to make 2025 a year of absolutely thriving. I can't wait to introduce you to today's guests. They're ladies who are making moves in real estate in some really big ways. They're going to teach us what we need to do to thrive in 25. So the big question is this: how do those of us in the real estate industry who have crazy amounts of ambition, how do we think bigger than the building of our own empires? How do we create success and significance, income and impact? My name is Justin Stoddard. This is my co-host Stephanie Peck, and together we bring you the Think Bigger. Welcome back, everybody. So excited to be with you. Stephanie Peck, my lovely co-host. So good to see you.
Hey, great to be here. Super excited about today's guest that we know very well.
We know it so well, and they're some of the most incredible individuals you'll ever have the privilege of learning from. Stephanie, why don't you do the honors of introducing these lovely ladies who are becoming legends in our industry because of their leadership, their top production, and their incredible podcast that's catching fire.
Excited to introduce Courtney Twiss and Michele Roderick out of Mariposa, California, that are just making some big waves in the industry with some big names for sure. And they are just a dynamic duo, amazing individuals, but unstoppable together.
So true. Ladies, we're the biggest fans of yours. And it's such a pleasure to have you here today. We're going to kick off this show because you really lead an incredible podcast. It's all about making moves in real estate. Will you define for us your interpretation of what is making moves in real estate? What does that mean?
Want to start us off?
You go ahead. Go ahead, Court.
Well, actually, so making moves has been one of our core values at our real estate company for over a decade. Mm-hmm. And it's something that we've trained our team on to basically not be complacent. Mm-hmm. If you're complacent, if you're sitting on the sidelines, you're not going to get anything done or really, move the needle. So to us, making moves is just being bold and taking action and making things happen.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I think that has to be the theme of this year. Do you not agree? Is that like a lot of people are like hoping, well, we have a different president now. Maybe that'll fix it. Maybe interest rates will come down. Maybe that'll fix it. Maybe this, maybe that. At the end of the day, do you agree that like we should not depend upon that? In fact, Stephanie's probably a great resource for this because regardless of what's happening in the economy, she's absolutely slayed it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, regardless of the administration, regardless of interest rates, regardless of all this stuff, doesn't mean it hasn't been difficult, Stephanie, but will you speak to that a little bit? Is it like, it's not about circumstances. At the end of the day, it's what we do.
I mean, it's so cliche, but it's so true that there is opportunity everywhere and you just have to shift to the opportunity. And in my real estate sales business, that's exactly what we've done. We've seen things that were consistently producing results for us that are not producing results. So we've got to go to where the results are going to be. And one thing that I learned from Justin, one thing that you've always said is if you do the same thing, it's not the phrase of like doing the same thing is going to get the same results. Doing the same thing will get you less and less.
Yeah. I've always believed that because, I mean, for example, right? In the 70s, if I had a phone book ad was awesome, right? In the 80s, the 90s, like at some point, doing the same thing does not give me the same thing. It gets me less and less and less. The world is changing faster than ever before. So to your point, Stephanie, yes, we cannot just do what we've done and expect to get what we've gotten. It's actually, we have to do more intelligent moves, right? We have to make moves. Ladies, you are pretty iconic in your industry or your area of Mariposa, California, right? You were kind of the big fish in a small pond. And you decided to make a move and put yourself into, I would say, a bigger pond, right? Mm-hmm. Was there any hesitancy when it came to making that move of joining a cloud-based brokerage and really choosing at that point to go from like we're kind of the king of the hill at some level to where now we're just learning, right? Talk to us about that exchange of.
Well, I served on Courtney's leadership team for a number of years, and yeah, it was a very big risk And sure, she could have chosen to like do the status quo and lead in the market. And there were always bigger things that she had for herself and together that we wanted to do, and more things that we wanted to provide for our clients and our team. And in order to do all of those things, we had to make a change. We couldn't just be complacent and do the same thing, or we would have the same results, which was not going where we wanted to go. So yeah, I mean, it was a big risk, and
there was a lot of hesitancy.
Yeah, it took a long time to process that.
Hesitancy for months, right? It was a big, scary thing to take your company, your baby that we've been growing for 12 years as an independent broker. And I know we've mentioned to other people, we used EOS, we have our vision lined out for 10 years. And all of a sudden we are switching our entire vision for the direction of our company and for all of our team. And it was a scary decision, but we knew that sometimes the right moves are the hard moves.
Stephanie, have you felt that? I mean, can you validate that in your industry, that you've been at a point at certain times in your business? And I've been fortunate to know you for more than 10 years now, in seeing how you've started off in an environment and you kind of outgrew that environment, right? And I've seen you do that multiple times. Talk to us about that feeling that agents may be experiencing, who are like, I need to make 2025 far better than 2024. And I'm concerned as I look around that I don't have the resources around me, whatever that looks like, right? This is not just about brokerage change. This is about potentially life changes, right? Environmental changes. There's all kinds of things that play into this. But again, the theme of this is making moves in real estate. How did you have the courage to make multiple moves when you knew that there was some downside to that, some risk to that?
Yeah, because every time you make a move, there is going to be some level of loss. There's a mourning process to it. And, so let's not sugarcoat it. Let's just accept that is part of the process. There's, and I went through this transition with Courtney and Michele too. And there is a mourning process. So just embrace that part of it. I would say would be my biggest advice to anyone that is considering making a big move, is accepting that it's not all going to be easy and it's not all going to be great. And you might not even see the result of it immediately. You have to stay focused on the bigger picture, on that further down the track where you want to be. And you have to ask yourself, is where I'm at right now serving me and serving my clients and the people around me to the very highest level? Or is there something else out there and I've got to take the risk to find it? Otherwise, I'm just, if you're a driven person like we all are, you're not going to be happy. You're just going to be miserable. Let's just call it what it is. You're just going to be miserable staying in one place. And so, I mean, really the follow-up question I have to that for Courtney and Michele is, what was that moment for you where you say you had a lot of hesitancy, a lot of, just unsure about which direction was the right direction. And you did have to go through that mourning process, but what was the moment for you that made you say, I need a change. I need to do something bigger?
Well, we knew that we wanted to grow the business for a number of years. And we realized and recognized, us being in a small rural community, that growth had to come from other markets. We'd already captured the market share in our local community. We were fairly capturing the market share in our second office location. And so we knew in order to grow, we were going to have to spread our wings and to go into other communities, other markets. And we had started to do that by having brick and mortar offices. And as we mentioned, we realized, that's probably not the direction that we should be taking it based off of all these changes in our industry. The cloud-based model made a lot of sense. The compensation structure around it is extremely strong. But I think what really made us actually be intrigued and really make the decision with some of the people that we met. And that was Don Yoakum, who we were connected to through this Digi CEO group that I was a part of, and his mentorship. We started to realize, okay, this is someone that built some of the most profitable Keller Williams offices in the world, had 5,000 agents under him, and he made a big bold move and went to a cloud-based brokerage about 5 years ago. Why did he do that? Why did someone like that, who had a lot going for him, make this decision? And so that's when we actually started the conversations and did a deep dive on how it would look for our business and our company if we were to, do the same.
Super good. Well, I think that name, Dawn Yoakum, makes each and every one of us smile because our lives have gotten significantly better by knowing Dawn. And for those that don't know, I'm partners with Dawn and lead a company called Pro Insight. And I have the good fortune of talking to Dawn most days, multiple times throughout the day. And he's a significant mentor. And I think that's something that I see. In fact, this weekend, I was down at what's called the 10X Business Summit in Scottsdale, Arizona. I looked around the room and I was like, there is some big fish in this room. In fact, the guy on stage scaled the company to $150 million, sold it for $150 million, 77 times profitability. Can't get my head around that. But anyway, I thought to myself, like, I have so much to learn. Whereas at other times I'm in environments where I'm like I'm kind of in the higher tier of accomplishment, right, in this sphere. And it's so helpful, I think, to identify mentors and be like, they've gone somewhere I want to go. How do I get closer to that person, right? How do I do what they've done? Because it's at that point, it's just a matter of following in their footsteps. And the fact that you ladies identified that with Don and what he had done, right? I think all of us are looking for those mentors that can say, hey, this is what I did, right? Let me show you how you can do that too. And for me, I think that puts a really nice, almost kind of bow on what it means to make moves in real estate, is look around and say, can I learn from the people around me, right? Or how much upside is there? And if there's not that much, we ought to take a look to say, what's the downside of not now making a move, right? And so I'd love to hear for you ladies, what's happened. First and foremost, let's talk about the upside of making moves, right? So Stephanie, help walk us through that transition of like, we got to have courage. We have to have a bigger vision and realize to get to that point, I need a different path, right? You ladies demonstrated that in your move. Talk to us about how maybe life has gotten bigger for you, since we're on the Think Bigger Real Estate podcast. Talk to us about how your life's gotten bigger as a result of the move that you made.
Take it, Michele.
Well, I think that when Courtney really came to terms with making this decision and recognizing, here's the ceiling, she's the independent broker, she's leading the ship, and she broke through that ceiling and partnered with EXP and was able to provide all of the mentors with the people that she met, it put her team in a position to embrace the same thing or not. And for myself, I'm like, girl, I'm with you all the way. Like, I'm going to get licensed. I'm going to help you grow. We're going to start a podcast. We're going to blow this thing out and build across the country and build an organization that we always dreamed of doing. And here we are, a little over a year. And we just completed our 50th episode of Now Making Moves in Real Estate podcast. We've not missed 1 week. So we got that done. And we have grown our organization. In fact, we brought on a really pretty sizable team in Southern California, a global influencer, and we're helping them build their production team. The Gated Group with Gina Kirschenheiter and her partner, Travis Mullen. That's huge. And then we just have agents that we're growing in different states. We've got Washington and Texas and California. So
Georgia soon.
Georgia soon.
Oh no, we are in Georgia.
Oh yeah,
already in Georgia.
Oh, yeah, Amanda.
4 states.
Yeah. So like, those are all pretty big moves. I became an investor with my husband in a multi-housing fund. Is that it?
Go bigger, go home. Go bigger, go home.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. That has really translated to making a lot of moves for the people that wanted to embrace her change. Mm-hmm. Now, is that everybody? To Stephanie's point on the fallout of some things, there were some people in the organization that just felt a little intimidated by being partnered with an international brokerage and like what we're building. And that's okay. Yeah. But, that's how the chips fall. So does that answer your question?
It does, in quite magnificent form. I think back about what you said, like the concerns that you had originally of like, how do we expand to another location, right? Like that was your form of growth. And by making kind of this, taking this leap of faith of saying, you know what, I think we're just in too small of a pool. I think we got to get into a bigger pool. Like, I don't think you had any idea in 1 year's time how much bigger your world would be, right? I mean, it's just amazing to hear the states that you're in now, the people who are celebrities in their own right, who are now joining your organization. It's amazing to see that, although, as Stephanie described, like, there's some risk, there's some concern, there's some people that are going to be upset, there's some people who aren't going to stay with you during that time. Most of us look that far ahead and we just can't get past that. It's like, this is good. I can't do it because of these things. Whereas what Stephanie taught us is you have to have a bigger vision, right? All of a sudden, it's so much bigger than we even realized out here, right? So Stephanie, speak to that. I know you've been making big moves in real estate as well. When you hear that, and you mentor a lot of really great agents, for those that don't know, Stephanie has probably one of the most incredible teams of real estate agents. She mentors them at a really high level. They're a relationship, reputation, referral-based organization who just does a lot of business and does it really well. Talk to us about maybe that process as well. What's the upside, Stephanie, of making moves?
It's exactly how Michele just described, that when they walked through one door, there were thousands of doors down that hallway that just kept opening up. And I'm just such a visual person. So I picture that, like, it's not just walking, I'm going to walk through one door and I'm going to be here now. No, I'm going to walk through a door, and possibilities become endless when you walk through that. To speak to myself personally, I have the great benefit of keeping that, the local, because I've got my local production team, and Courtney and Michele have worked this way too. Like, you can maintain what you have and still open up a whole nother world of possibility. So it's awesome to be positioned in this way where we still have this, like, big fish feeling in our local market, and we still get to do great things for the place where our heart is. And we get to be a part of this big, huge world that we didn't even know existed until we walked through that first door.
Interesting. What's behind door number one? It's 100 other doors that are all amazing, right?
Right.
That was the talk show. I want to just share a quote that's come to mind. I know all of us are very spiritually rooted, right? We all have deep faith. And a C.S. Lewis quote, he said it this way. And I think there's obviously a lot of spiritual application, but I think there is some business application here as well. He says, we are half-hearted creatures fooling about with drink and sex and ambition when infinite joy is offered us. Like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in a slum because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at the sea. We are far too easily pleased. So when you think about that quote, right, obviously that has a much more eternal perspective to it. But I think we can also get in these little mud puddles over here, right? This is my little world, and I don't want to a cruise at the sea. Like, why would I do that? I got this mud puddle, right? And we don't realize what's offered, what's really available to us. Ladies, I'd love to hear some more perspective of you. Have you thought about like the downside of not making moves, right? Since you are the making moves ladies, what's the risk of not making a move?
Well,
I'm sorry to laugh. Go ahead.
No, you obviously have something you're thinking.
Well, I'm just like, I've thought about that my whole life, Justin. Like, truly, I come from very humble beginnings. And I mean, my whole life, I'm like, okay, like, if I don't do this, like, what's going to happen? You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, we all have a set of circumstances. And like, if you don't push through that and be like, I'm going to, like, do this thing, I don't know what the thing is or where the thing's going to be, but I got to, like, do it. I'm going to overcome and persevere, and not only teach myself a lesson along the way, but the people that are in my life, like my child and my husband and my community. And I don't know if that's, like, just what I was called to do, but it's what I'm doing. It's what I've always done. And I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question, but
and I think about Stephanie, this is an interesting one, is I just had this picture as Michelle's talking about this, of you working in a city office, right? Which was your reality how many years ago? Like 20? Stephanie, yeah.
Oh, when I worked for a government municipality, city office.
Yes.
Yeah. That was 15 years ago. I worked there up until the day I gave birth to my son. And he turns 15 in a few days. So yeah.
Now, imagine, Stephanie, if at that point you would have said, I have a child now. I've got to be responsible. I need dependable income and I need insurance. Like I got to have the benefits. So I can't leave a normal job. I've got to hurry back to work, right? So I can pay for childcare and so I can get back to work and be sure and have insurance for my child. Now, keep in mind, this is no judgment on anybody that makes that decision, because if that's all the opportunity you have in front of you, I commend you. That's a super noble thing, right? But Stephanie, I just want to cause you to just ponder for a moment. Had that been your mindset and you did not make a move into real estate, right? Can you fathom how different your life would be had you done that?
I think about that all the time. Yes, because I remember the moment when I was working that job that I realized it wasn't going to give me the time with my family that I wanted. And I was devastated. I was like, that's why I say there's a mourning process to everything. I was crying and what am I going to do? Oh. And at that point I had my real estate license and, I was doing it on the side as a hobby. And I thought, well, time to dive in, time to make this happen. And it's completely changed our lives. The things that I'm able to offer my family, the things that my children are able to do, and the time that I have with them to do it is incredible. I would never have even dreamt of this life, because I also came from a family that taught, get a good job, stick with it, put money in your 401k, work till you're 65, and hopefully you have enough by that age. That is how I was taught that life was supposed to work. So it just felt like completely jumping off a cliff to do something different for me.
Boy, I think about the same, Stephanie. You and I first met when I was in an industry that was paying me really well, multiple six figures, super comfortable. Mm-hmm. And I think back about how if I would have been afraid to leave that, how my world would not be what it is now, right? It would be very different. And I think one thing that my older brother taught me, he said, one of the most important responsibilities I have outside of being sure my children have a relationship with their Savior. That's number one, right? Mm-hmm. Outside of that, number two is to teach them to go for it, right? Let that sink in a little bit. Like our children are watching and they're patterning how big their dreams are and how much impact they're going to be able to create in this world based on watching us either make moves or not make moves, right? Both, all of you have absolutely beautiful, wonderful children. Talk to the audience about that emotion. As you think about, each one of you have risked a lot to make bigger moves. What impact is that having upon your children?
Well, I was just thinking about, as you guys were speaking, of how you grew up and, the type of jobs you had and the freedom. And I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. So my parents owned their own business for most of my childhood. It was a home improvement store. And I got to see the beauty and the flexibility. It was my first job. I was watering plants out in the nursery. And I also got to see the struggles that they went through and actually ultimately closing the business down. So I grew up seeing the perks and the cons of being an entrepreneur and running your own business, and still seeing all that, wanting to do what they did. And I knew from an early age that I wanted to have my own business. So I think that's something that we've carried on with our three daughters. My husband has his own company. We also have the hotel and lending and the real estate. So we have our hands in multiple pots, and they have walked alongside us throughout all of it, going to listing appointments, going on fencing estimates with my husband when they were little. I'm pretty candid with them when things are getting tough or we're having, things going on in the business that aren't so fun. And so you have to do it with them, or they won't understand why we're doing what we're doing.
And I will add this, and I was thinking about this as well as listening to everybody speak in this podcast, but I suspect, at least for me, and I'm going to guess for all of you, the one thing that I have always asked myself when making any decision is, if it doesn't work, can I go back? If it doesn't work with this move to San Francisco, if it doesn't work with this move to EXP, if it doesn't work for whatever it is, can I go back? Yeah. most likely, I mean, if you leave on good terms, and that's the lesson that I'm like really trying to teach our daughter is like, you just got to take a chance. And along the way, you'll learn a lesson of some kind. It may be that you were wrong and you got to go back or pivot and go this way. But if you don't make the move in whatever capacity, you not only will never know, you won't even like learn something. And what kind of life is that to live if you're not learning? I
once watched Grant Cardone interview Dana White, who's the founder of UFC. And I think he was working as a bellman, and he had this vision of doing something bigger. And he thought, what happens if this doesn't work? If I don't, and he said, I could always go back, right? Same concept. He's now worth $500 million, right? No one's one of the most successful sports companies in the world. And to that point, right? It can be scary to leave. And I think that's a good safety net is like, can I go back? Of course, they'll take me back, right? And I think that's a great way to look at it. Any final thoughts from you, Stephanie, as we wrap up?
I just want to hear from Courtney and Michele. What has been the biggest reward that you've experienced in pushing through this hard time of making a big move?
I think a couple things. I have cultivated more resiliency through making moves, especially over this last year. But I think the biggest thing for me, I don't know about for you, is just the relationships that I've built with all these people that we've met over the last year that I would never have known that are out there. And it's been very, very rewarding for me, 20 years in the business, to feel that kind of growth in our own career and watch it in our organization. What about you, Michele?
The biggest reward?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the biggest reward has been my partnership with Courtney. Like, we've just been like great friends and done so much even before EXP. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like, we were making moves and doing things even before, and we've just done it in a way where we've just tried to like navigate the waters together. And if we didn't have one another, I don't think the reward would be as good. Mm-hmm. Personally and professionally, right? Like, you can succeed all you want on your own. Like, we both did it independent of knowing one another. Mm-hmm. And that's great, but it just seems, like not everybody has that kind of benefit, and it's a blessing and a reward.
Aw.
So good. You ladies, all three of you, have taught today's audience how to think bigger in a very tactical way. And I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank the audience for tuning in today. It's always such a pleasure to be around big thinkers, to share big thinkers with all of you. And also extremely grateful for my incredible co-host who lives the big thinker lifestyle. Like, she really, truly is someone who's always thinking bigger. And Stephanie, thank you for always inspiring me and so many others. You're awesome.
Thank you.
And my final request of everybody listening here today are these three simple words, and they are: go think bigger. Thanks, my friends. Talk soon.
Before you go, we've got one more invitation for you. We all know that listening to a podcast is not enough to help you to become a big thinker and high achiever. We must take action. So the very first step, think about one lesson learned from this podcast that you'd like to apply, and send it to us in the form of a direct message at Think Bigger Real Estate.